Ouija boards have an interesting history to say the least. They've been largely marketed as toys and knickknacks, but also have this paranormal allure to them. Is it a game, or maybe something deeper and darker than that? Depending on who you ask, the answer will differ. While my own personal experiences with Ouija boards have only resulted in a few questionably real planchette movements, others have witnessed terrifying things. In fact, many who make frequent use of these alphabet-adorned rectangles seem to believe they've come face to face with demons. It's often hard to tell because of the incorporeal nature of otherworldly visitors and the general tendency of demons to be as sneaky and underhanded as possible, but today I shall warn you away from certain practices in order to avoid certain presences. It's time for the top 5 Ouija board demons you should never summon. Coming in at number 5, we've got Danny / Malfeitor. Well, we'll kick it off pretty simple with a throwback to the horror movies of the 80s. Ouija Board is a Ouija-themed romp through the mean streets of California, ranging from house parties to construction sites to an ever-infamous lake sequence. It's pretty cheesy, but there are definitely some good bits if you're into 80s horror. We kick off the introduction to evil presences with a good old-fashioned group session. While her boyfriend is off getting drunk, Linda gets her hands on her ex's Ouija board and summons a presence in front of a crowd, and that is not a euphemism. The partygoers meet Danny, a young boy who died a tragic death and is now communicating with everyone through the board. Things get heated between Linda's current and ex-boyfriends, which results in Danny slashing the tires of a car. Whoops. Danny's still a good kid though. The next day, Linda decides to call up Danny again and see how he's doing, but this time she brings out the board all alone without any guidance. Bad call, as the presence that shows up says he's Danny but is hiding his true identity. Always a bad sign. The presence helps Linda find her engagement ring and never gets dismissed. This means it can stick around and do what it wants, wherever it wants, whenever it wants. And what it wants is to kill any and everyone who might get in its way. See, this presence that claimed to be Danny on the second day was actually that of Carlos Malfeitor, an evil spirit. The man was an axe murderer in life, gunned down by police while trying to escape capture. As it turns out, he lived in Linda's house way back before she moved in. He'd been waiting for an opportunity to possess someone for ages, and this was the perfect time. Using progressive entrapment, he slowly but surely works towards being able to take over Linda and enter back into the living world. This results in plenty of death and destruction along the way, including almost getting her boyfriend arrested for the murders. So while you're using a Ouija board, do some research about where you're using it. If a bunch of nasty stuff occurred at your location, don't do it. Also keep an eye out for demons pretending to be other people. That one's a little harder to make sure of though. Coming in at number 4, we've got Kelly. This name doesn't sound so bad, but if you like your head to remain upon your shoulders, avoid it at all costs. Seriously though, this demon is sending out all of the warning signals possible, so if you end up dead, it really is your fault. She first showed up when a young lad was trying out Ouija with his older brother and cousin. They set up the board, got things ready to rock, and began to ask questions. With the lights out and candles lit, things were about to get spooky. And spooky things got. The young lad had a doll with him at the time, and this doll went by the name of Kelly. Uh-oh. Of course, it was good to have such a figure for comfort while doing something so potentially scary. So when the planchette started moving, he reached for his doll. However, Kelly was missing in action. Panicked, the kid looked back to the board and saw that it was spelling something. K-E-L-L-Y. Oh my goodness. Soon after, the ritual ended and the boys were considerably shaken. The youngest one looked frantically for his doll, but to no avail. However, later she was found, without her head. Someone or something had taken the doll, popped its dome off, and hidden the pieces away. If you ask me, this is a kind of warning, a sign of things to come. The next time you try to use a Ouija board around here, the demon might spell your name. And then your head might go missing. Not the kind of injury that's easy to recover from, yeah? Coming in at number 3, we've got Doris. Back to some movie magic for a moment, Doris is the exceptionally upsetting demon featured in Blumhouse's Ouija series. She turned out to be the main villain in the first one, and then the prequel explores her tragic backstory. Demons with sad stories are always the worst, eh? You want to sympathize with them, but then they're out here trying to kill everyone and singing sad songs. It's a whole mess. Doris had her mouth sewed shut by her mother to prevent evil spirits and voices from taking over, and eventually passed on, becoming one of these presences summoned by the board. Once she became a demon, Doris possessed many people. Anyone foolish enough to summon her using a board would be taken over and killed in horrific ways. Doris will make people hang from Christmas lights by their own doing, or put their heads through porcelain sinks. That's gotta hurt, and there's no coming back from that kind of head trauma. There's some swimming pool antics, some stitch-mouthed ghost antics, the whole 9 yards. Even though Doris was just a girl, as a demon she has a whole lot of anger and terror to express. And what better way to express your demonic urges than through a killing spree? Sounds like fun. So if you'd like to keep your bathroom pristine and your head unmunched, stay away from that Ouija board. Coming in at number 2, we've got Shush. This one comes from another supposedly true tale where average folks messed with a board and paid the price. Everyone knows how embarrassing it can be to be shushed, especially by a stranger. So what about a paranormal stranger? One with the potential to shut you up for good? It doesn't sound like a whole lot of fun if I'm being totally honest, but that's exactly what happened here. Two friends decided to take a swing at some Ouija board antics and plopped one down on their table. They tried for a little while to contact any sort of presence, but came up short. After asking a few more questions, they returned to the top, asking questions like, "Is there anyone here that would like to communicate with us?" This apparently was the last straw, as the planchette immediately moved to no. Thinking this was their chance to finally talk with someone from the other side, they pushed further, asking more questions. But the presence did not appreciate this and used the planchette to spell out S-H-U-S-H. Shush. Holy moly, it just wanted some peace and quiet. After this, the room felt considerably colder and the pals didn't want to see what would happen if they didn't follow the presence's instructions. Something tells me it wouldn't have been pleasant. I could see a demon stealing someone's voice or permanently sealing their mouth for not being quiet when told. So who wants to play the quiet game? I'll start. Coming at number 1, we've got Zozo. Now, you know we couldn't do a Ouija demon list without including one of the newest and most prolific entries into the ghostly pop culture oeuvre. Zozo seemingly hasn't been around that long, and his popularity is largely attributed to internet culture gassing him up. There might be brief mentions of this demon in assorted old compendiums and grimoires, but nothing concrete, and the old writings don't really connect him to Ouija boards or possession either. But Zozo is a famous demon now, and those tend to do exactly what people expect them to do. The more we discuss him, the stronger and more bold he grows. Many who have encountered this demon feel its presence for years after the fact, regardless of whether they close the session or not. One tale recounts a man almost seeing his drown in the bathtub, attacked by Zozo. Others say that the demon acts like a poltergeist, ruining their homes and injuring them frequently. If your planchette moves from Z to O to Z to O, yes, I am Canadian, say goodbye and throw it in a fire. Nothing good will come from any further interaction. Can you still buy Ouija boards at Toys R Us? Well, their bankruptcy might prove to be a bigger barrier than the actual availability of the board, but still. I've always wondered if spirits knew the difference between mass-produced boards and special ones. I suppose you could just make one on a sheet of paper and go from there, even on your wall, Stranger Things style. So, what'd you think of the list? Do you agree with my picks? Have you ever run into a demon while using a Ouija board? Make sure you let me know down in the comments. Speaking of comments, let's take a look at some of your more sweet ones from the top 5 cursed cars you should never drive. William Allwood says you left out the best part of the little bastard story. Alec Guinness told James Dean he would be dead within a week if he got in that car, and that's exactly what happened. Do you think he used the Force to predict that? Joe Fisher says Keegan's pronunciation of Vohal makes them sound far more glamorous than they are. You know, we don't get too many of those in Canada, so how do you pronounce that? Is it Vauxhall? Vohal? Vahal? Copa Degato says, okay, this is the first time I realized you weren't British. Are you sure? Like, Lucy's British, I guess, but I feel like I'm not really that British at all. Rob Crowley 85 says, we can all answer any questions put to us, whether or not we can do so accurately is another thing. I suppose answering I don't know could count as accurate if you don't really know the answer. Fair enough. And Christopher Mills says, planes, trains, boats, and cars. Here's a secret, YouTubers. Do not salvage parts from wrecked vehicles. Just do not do it. The plane that crashed in Florida, well, I think it was Florida, back in the 1980s, they salvaged parts and put them in other planes. The crew to the crashed plane, their ghosts showed up in the planes that got parts from it. In World War II, a bomber that crashed in Egypt was salvaged and parts were put into other bombers, and those parts caused problems too. Best not to do it. Oh, but the parts are so cheap. And that is all the time we have for today. I'm going to salvage some parts from wrecked vehicles and make my own dream car. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. So, who wants to play the quiet game? I'll start. In WW2, why did I say WW? That's a website. www2.com. I win.